Bouncers of Reddit. Have you ever crossed paths with someone you've had to throw out of a club or bar? How was the experience? Warning, some audiences may find this content disturbing. View at your own discretion. Welcome to the House of Reddit. Today, we share some r/AskReddit posts from Reddit. Bouncers of Reddit. Have you ever crossed paths with someone you've had to throw out of a club or bar? How was the experience? In my college days I used to frequent, and still visit more often than I should, a bar near campus. You pretty much only get kicked out if you throw up on the bar/floor, start a fight, get too handsy with another customer. Getting handsy is allowed if consensual. Since I went there all the time and regularly drank with most of the employees, I knew all the DJs and bartenders, and I usually got to know the bouncers decently well within a couple weeks. They all knew I was a good dude that just liked to have fun and make sure others did too. So one night, I saw a drunk guy grab a girl's ass as she walked by. I got the girl's attention, asked if she was okay, and told her to let me know if it happened again. Then I walked up to him and said, "Hey man. You can't be doing that shit. Do it again, and you're out of here." Dude shrugged it off and basically told me to go fuck myself. So I kinda kept an eye on him. Sure enough, about 10 minutes later, I saw him do it again. I looked around for a bouncer, but I didn't see any nearby. So I just walked over to him, beer hugged him, said, "I told you to stop doing that shit," and picked him up and carried him out the front door. I set him outside, and I looked at the bouncer, who was brand new and didn't know me yet, and said, "That dude's gotta go. Don't let him back in." Bouncer was just like, alright. Couple months later, we were sitting around drinking, and we're talking about fights in the bar and kicking people out and shit, and one of them jokingly says, "Actually too, you ever kick anyone out?" I go, "I've broken up a bunch of fights when none of you were around, but yeah, I've kicked out a couple, actually." And the bouncer from that one night goes, "Yeah, man. I still remember that. I didn't even know who the fuck you were yet, I just saw a customer that I kinda recognized carrying out another guy. He tried getting back in later that night and I wouldn't let him. Apparently, the guy was pissed, and yelled at the bouncer saying it was bullshit that he got kicked out by someone that wasn't even working. Bouncer stuck with it, though. I also have a former roommate that got kicked out on his 21st for being stupid drunk and ripping off his shirt, which, knowing the guy, was probably hilarious because he's super laid back and never acts like that. I didn't know him at the time, and we moved in together like 6 months later with some mutual friends. After living with me, those guys all became well-known regulars too. One night, we're sitting at the bar talking to one of the bartenders, and my roommate says, "Hey, do you remember kicking me out?" I immediately start laughing my ass off and ask for the story because I didn't know that happened. So they tell me what happened and then bartender says, "Yeah, you weren't being rude or anything. I told you that you had to leave, you just apologized and walked yourself right out, then you started coming in with "actually too" all the time, and that's when I knew you were really a piece of shit." I work in a similarly aggressive field, towing. We've had the occasional jackass insinuate that they'd get back at whoever had them impounded, to which I remind them that to release their vehicle I am copying their ID, getting their name and phone number. There's at least one witness, me, who has seen them make the threat on camera with audio. We have the make and model and VIN number of their car. We know where they spend their time at, and police have an easy motive to work with. It will not take a Sherlock Holmes to solve this case. Most people drop it. Well, we had one customer get pretty volatile with us, accusing us of stealing his car, and he came back the day after I released his vehicle to start a fight, so police were called and he was banned from the building. But he came back the next day to apologize. Still banned, but at least it won't be awkward to see him at the grocery store. Apparently he didn't learn his lesson. We were called to his business a year later to impound multiple vehicles, and he encouraged his illegally parked customers to make a break for it before they got picked up by our trucks. Which they did. In the process nearly killing one of our drivers. This parking lot was about 2 blocks from the police station. A cop happened to be passing by on his way to the station, caught the near murder on camera. The business owner and one of the customers was arrested on the spot, The vehicle that got away and almost killed a driver made it about 2 minutes away before being picked up. We didn't get to impound either vehicle, but only because they suddenly became evidence in an attempted murder case that of course got plead down. Either way, that was a very expensive mistake for those 3 idiots. Had a friend do something similar, but not to the same level. Used to frequent one bar with friends from work, like once a week show up and spend 12+ hours drinking. We all became friendly with the bartenders, and still are today. Well, after one big night of drinking, my friend wakes up and says, "Oh shoot. I don't think I closed out last night." After breakfast, we swung by the bar so my friend could close out. They had probably drank about $80 worth of booze, but our bills generally ended up in the sub $20 range, plus a healthy tip. Well, we roll up the next day, they walk in to apologize for not closing out and ask to settle their bill. The bartender on duty, who had been working the night before, laughed and was just like, "Yeah, we noticed that as well, but we know it wasn't on purpose. We just ate the cost, don't worry about it. Have a good rest of your day and see you all next week." It was a pretty anticlimactic ending, though it just shows you how a good relationship can take you a long way. Whenever I can, I try and make myself known, for good reasons, with people I interact with. If for no other reason, to help improve those people's days, and at best for better treatment down the line. This has come in handy in a few instances. One time I went to my corner store, which I have been frequenting for probably 5 years. Well, I went to check out and their credit card machine wasn't working. I probably had about $20 worth of food, and the guy working was just like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. We see you all the time and know you're a local frequent. Just settle up next time you come in." I also front load this kind of experience when I travel. Whenever I fly, I make sure to buy a bag of candy for the fight crew. Usually spend like $8, $15 doing this. When I walk on, I just say, "Hi, I just wanted to thank you guys for working this flight and hope it's a good one. I just wanted to quickly drop off this bag of candy with the flight crew, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day." Worst case, the flight crew are a bit surprised and thank me a lot for the candy, like they stop by where I am sitting. Best case, they treat me a lot nicer, and end up giving me free stuff. On my last flight, the crew ended up giving me a bunch of free wine and a first-class toiletry kit. When this happened, the guy next to me asked why I was getting all the free stuff, so I told him about the candy. He thought it was a great idea and had never thought about doing it. We chatted for a bit. We both found out we had a 3-hour layover at our next stop, so he invited me into the lounge he had access to, as he was a frequent flyer for work. No, but it was specifically not interacting with the person that makes all the difference in my story. Also, important to note that I am not a professional bouncer. This was my first time bouncing and only did it because I was dead broke. I worked some random dive bar and everything was fine going into the night, mostly regulars and a couple random just having a good time. This table of about 6 people were getting a little loud and taking shot after shot. I kept my eye on them, but they didn't do anything to warrant an intervention. An hour before close, as the group goes up to the bar to close their tabs, a guy and a girl in the group started arguing and the guy pours his Corona all over the girl. As I walk up to eject them, the guy turns his beer bottle around and holds it like a weapon and taunts me to come at him. My inexperience as a bouncer probably plays a hand in this next decision, because I still wonder what the right move as a bouncer would have been. I rush him and overpower him and hold him down until he's calm. I escort him out and talk to him outside. He tries to walk back in after I tell him to have a good night. He starts getting physical again, but this time he knocks me onto my back and gets on top of me. I have no idea why he didn't ground and pound me right there. We tussle for a bit. At this point I've pulled his braids, we've both choked each other and we're both scraped up and bleeding. His group eventually comes out and pulls him away and they all leave. I go back in and make sure all the patrons left and pick up the chairs and tables we've knocked over. We also broke the bar's front door in the scuffle. I go home and clean up, wake up with bumps and bruises and work the door again the next day. The same group comes in but without the guy. They end up talking to me, the girl thanks me, I don't know why, and the other guys tell me how lucky I am because that was the day he left his house without his gun. Apparently they all met up at one of their friends' house before going out and the guy mentioned how pissed he was that he left it at home. I quit that night and never bounced again. $60 and some chicken wings a night is not worth losing my life over. My cousin was a bouncer for a while, 6 feet 3 inch, built like a brick shit house, way back late 90s early 2000s, and he tossed a guy out who'd been an ongoing problem and got permission from the bosses to ban him. Fucker came back something like a week later, spotted my cousin at his post outside the bar, hurled some abuse and trotted off when cousin threatened to call the cops. Cousin thought nothing more of it till next thing he hears is a car engine roaring, turns just in time to see the car mount he curb and wakes up in hospital. Yup, that fucker had gotten in his car and used it to ram my cousin through the door of the bar and got the car stuck wedged in the door and wall. Idiot tried to flee but car was stuck or too much front end damage, so jumped out to run but was pounced on by passers-by and arrested. Only think my cousin is still with us is mix of luck and cause he was smashed through the door and not crushed between the front end of car and brick wall. Still broke both legs, fractured his pelvis, broke a few ribs, broke left arm near the shoulder and minor skull fracture. Cousin spent a while in hospital and lots of physio and mental therapy. Never went back to being a bouncer, instead took up being a carpenter. Asshole was charged with attempted murder and several other things. Got sent to jail a good long while. Thankfully cousin is doing fine these days, happily married with 3 great kids. It's pretty common as well. When I was 17 I had a house party in my backyard. It was basically open invite to friends and friends of friends. But majority of people asked before bringing anyone. A bunch of guys that were like 20 and didn't know anyone showed up. Apparently one of them was dating a girl from school that never came to our parties and she always told them where they were. I never knew they were there until one started a fight. Because when you're aggressively hitting on a 17-year-old girl and she tells you to fuck off cause she has a boyfriend and he's a creep, you go find the boyfriend and start a fight with him. And then run when everyone at the party turns on them. I didn't even hear about it until they were already gone. So 2 weeks later my buddy is turning 18. He has a P costume party cause his name starts with P. He comes as Peter Pan. Full proper outfit. A bunch of people from his church dressed up to some extent. But for the most part it was him in a Peter Pan costume and 10 others dressed up out of 100 to 150 people. Of course, the 20-years-old bags from a few weeks ago show up. The guy comes up to me and apologizes for ruining my party. I had no idea who he was and was just like, thanks, don't worry about it, have a good night. Later in the night, I walk outside to wait for my bro to pick me up. I'm blinder than a welder's dog, there's nothing but a strobe lighting the night. This prick runs out of the dark and King hits me square in the nose. I just saw this weird freeze frame of a fist moving towards me. Then starts beating the shit out of drunk helpless me. Luckily, Peter Pan was at the party. He fights off a couple of his friends, dumps the bag on his ass and takes me to safety. Lol. I got away pretty unscathed. My nose bled a lot. But had no bruising, black eye. Maybe a few lumps on the back of my head. Apparently that is where the other shots landed. They didn't show up to any parties after that one. I had a bouncer tell his girlfriend to grab his gun. Scared the hell out of me. I was walking with a friend who tried hitting on a woman outside of a bar. We were both underage. There was 2 girls and 3 guys standing nearby. Well, the girl he tried hitting on had a boyfriend and was one of the 3. So they surround my buddy and I and start talking shit. He could have just apologized and we would have kept walking because we were sober. Instead he starts talking shit, saying he'll kick all their asses. They're shoving him around, so I step back. I have no problem throwing hands, but he was a dipshit and was counting on me to do the majority of the work. I'm leaned against the building when the bouncer comes out and grabs me. He starts yelling at me for causing trouble, saying he's going to beat my ass. I had nothing to do with it except knowing the guy. And the bouncer isn't doing fuck all about the 3 dudes shoving my friend around in a circle. I try to walk away and the bouncer shoved me into the wall. So I start hitting him and lump him up pretty good before walking away. Bouncer comes chasing after me, so I hit him a few more times and walk away. He comes after me a 3rd time. So I hit him enough to where he's on the ground now and I ask if he's done. His reply was to scream, "Babe, go get my fucking gun." So yeah, I ran off pretty damn fast. The guy I was with ran with me. Their little fight stopped pretty quick after I got into it with the bouncer. The bouncer had almost 100 pounds and 5 to 6 on me. But I think he'd had a few drinks, because I whooped him pretty good. I've been a bouncer for almost 4 years, so I have some stories. I work in a small music venue/nightclub, and one night we hosted a rave night. Now, most of these guys are late 20s early 30s, and it seems like all of them have a lot of money. So obviously we were charging £20 on the door, since we could fill the place out even if we were charging people a lot to get in. Now this one guy didn't want to pay that much and decided he would have a go of trying to sneaking in and telling me he already paid, which he obviously didn't, as I've been on the door all day and never left that spot. Anyway, he's arguing with me, throwing all his credit and debit cards at me, so I'm annoyed and go to pick them up until he slaps me on the top of the head with one of his cards. Now I pride myself on being calm and rarely ever having to put my hand on someone. But this guy went too far, so I put him in a headlock and drag him out while his friends are laughing at him. "Oh, did I mention to get into the out bar you have to go down a flight of stairs?" Well, imagine how hard it is to get someone out who doesn't want to leave. Well, I and the other bouncer carried this guy up the stairs and dumped him outside. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, and shopping in Morrison's supermarket, and he spots me and approached me. He apologized and he wanted to make it up to me, so paid for my meal deal and shook my hand, so I would say that one went pretty well. I have moonlit as bouncer in the past. I even got to work security for a Bubba Sparks show. My town, small as it is, has a very vibrant nightlife. It's the Northwoods, and in winter time, it's either ice fishing or the tavern. Wisconsin is a drinking state with a football problem. I was working the door at a local joint some years ago, and we had a party bus come through. Basically these people ride this bus around, drink Busch Light and hit all the bars for shots and shit. This was a wedding party. Like 30 people, going in and out of my bar, and the 2 bars across the street. I was chasing assholes out that kept bringing beer inside from the bus, and having a difficult time of it. We went from a full bar to elbow with the party bus sitting right outside the back door. Absolute chaos. So I have had enough. I 86'd a bunch of people from the party bus, and a minor they had snuck in. The minor was the bride's sister, and in why, if you're with your parents you can drink at the bar. Well, I had thrown mom and dad out for bringing beer inside, so the bride complains to the head bartender, Sal. Sal tells Bridezilla that the head bouncer me word is final. So oh lord, here she comes. I tell her under no circumstances, our mom, dad, and now her sister, re-entering the tavern. So she stomps off around to the corner table by the juke, and gets her husband and the best man. They try to reason with me, and even buy me off. I tell them to get out of my face and let me work, or they're gonna get 86 too. Waving a tenner in my face to get me to risk my job is not gonna make me any happier. So, they go back to Bridezilla, and she loses her shit. Like full on, this is my day, I'm not gonna have it ruined by Derpsalot 1984 and they let everyone else in, knee words and Mexicans, and she just went full on racist, white trash, tantrum. Now, there were only a few Dominican guys other than the white folks in there. I knew the Dominican guys, and they were cool. In fact, they were my neighbors, and worked at the same place I did during the day. To their credit, they ignored her. Sal, however, didn't, and told her to get her fat, racist ass out of the bar. Whole party, 86th. I go outside, and tell the bus driver he's gotta clear the parking lot. A few people, including one of the Dominican guys, had come out to smoke and watch the show. Cue Bridezilla. She tells her hubby, the best man, and daddy that N-word and that N-word loving bouncer ruined everything, etc., and I want you to kick their ass. I come around the front of the bus, and it's on. Like beer bottles and ice chunks getting thrown. Some little white dude is throwing the ash can at the bride. It's me, the little white dude, and the Dominican guy against like 6 pissed up rednecks. I know I knocked out the father of the bride at some point. Bridezilla herself called the cops, and I quote, "These black guys are beating up my dad. They're gonna kill my brother-in-law." At this point the other bouncer is outside, and half the patrons. The Dominicans grab their buddy and hide him inside. Cue every on-duty cop and deputy in the area. Like 10 to 15 cops, cause dad's unconscious on the bus. Bill is laying on a picnic table with a chunk of bottle glass in his leg, and I'm bleeding from a laceration from my forehead across my scalp to above my ear. The cops sort everything out, and bridezilla, dad, husband, brother-in-law, mom, sister-in-law, and sister all get arrested. Nobody on my side of things catches so much as a ticket. I got 41 stitches in my scalp. Apparently, in the melee, sister-in-law bashed B in the head a few times with a Rumpelminze bottle. She, her husband, and the groom all caught felony assault charges. They all plead out, and did jail time. Fast forward 2 years ago. The groom came and applied for a job where I worked. He walked in, sat down, and was chatting with my boss. He didn't recognize me, not at first. Then I called him by name across the shop. Without saying a word to my boss, he turned and ran out of the shop and peeled rubber out of the parking lot. My boss was so confused. I haven't seen him since. I see her every time I go into a certain local establishment. After her conviction, she lost her nursing license and job. She works in a gas station and as a waitress, and they divorced less than a year after they got married. She has never spoken to me, and will not even render service. Sometimes I go into the gas station just because I know she remembers every time she sees me. Fuck those people. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments below. Turn on the notifications to know when we post new videos. Thank you for coming to the House of Reddit.